Welcome to the Breakthrough to Your Best Success online event. Join your host, Elizabeth Hamilton-Guarino, and the contributors from the Success Guidebook and other special guests to visualize, actualize, and amplify you and your best success. This conference will help you redefine success, transform your goals, embrace change, design and realize your best life, and much more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Breakthrough to Your Best Success event, online event. I'm Elizabeth here with Jennifer Vaughn. How are you?
I'm wonderful. What a pleasure to join you. So good to see you.
Yeah, it's always great to see you too. So let me tell you all about Jennifer for a moment here. She's a long-standing news anchor for WMUR in New Hampshire, and she's also my bestie. So we may go a little off script. I love you so much. And she is the author in her own right of 8 best-selling books. They're amazing and incredible. They're not nonfiction.
Not all of them anyway. 2 of them are.
People think, oh, news anchor, she's writing about true crime and this and that. They're fiction.
They're fiction. However, my sources for my fiction are often people who work in the realm of crime and investigations, and they can provide some of the juiciest details that I can incorporate into my fiction work. So it's a bit of real life with a bit of a twist of imagination, and I can always control the endings, which is joyful because in my TV news job, I cannot do that.
Yeah. So when the demons come, is a really popular one. The Wishing Well, which is different for you. That's a Western. Tell me about just some of your books. And then you said, I love Shadow Kids, but I also love Throwaway Girl. They're all really, really good.
Oh,
you're such a great writer. So I hope.
Thank you. Right back at you.
Before you talk, do we want to send people to JVWrites?
JVWrites.com. Yeah, that's
books are available wherever books are sold.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part. But okay, tell me your favorite book.
Gosh.
I know.
It's like asking which one is your favorite child when you have multiple kids. It's very hard to answer that question.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you can relate to this too, is when you write a particular book, it's representative somewhat of that time in your life. So naturally, things that were happening then somewhat filtered into your perspective or how you were researching something or how you were feeling. So I guess I can look back through the arc of these books and pinpoint a particular time in life. Throwaway Girls, for instance, is a pretty gritty thriller. It's pretty fast-paced. It has to do with a TV reporter based in Los Angeles investigating a series of murders in nightclubs. I was constantly reaching out to those contacts that I was telling you about. We were having conversations all the time. It was a bit dark. And you sink into that in order to represent that accurately on the page. So I was sinking into that a little bit. And then in book 2 of that series, the J.C. Wilder series, it's Legacy Girls. And that's something that also is somewhat dark, but it was set back here in New Hampshire, which is my home state. So I was looking around more. I was looking at the mountains. I was looking, just sort of imprinting everything, the beauty around me to represent the state for somebody who might not ever have been here. And then, Shadow Kid is based on the true life story of a gentleman from New Hampshire. So I was immersed in his life for a while. Same with Made in Hollywood, which is the story of a child actor back in the 50s and 60s who was in all of the biggest movies and TV shows at the time, and immersing myself into his life. How did he remember this as an 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old? How did he do this as an 11-year-old? So I think books, when you write a continuum of them, which you have too, you kind of remember where you were in those places in your life. The Western that you mentioned, The Wishing Well, book 1 in the Amelia Wells series. So that was a little bit different because I had just lost my mom and I was sort of on the road to losing my dad. And it was an ode to them because in their later years, for whatever reason, and I think the brain looks and seeks for comfort in the final months. And for both of them, Westerns of yesteryear seem to really revive that sense of peace and comfort. And they both watched them pretty ferociously. So it's an ode to them and to that genre that I think brings a sense of nostalgia, a sense of comfort of where they were in their lives when they were watching that regularly. So that was a project that I didn't expect to do, but it's doing fairly well, and it's sort of like a in my heart type of project and reminiscent of both my parents.
Yes, those are the best ones. So I love that. I love our author chats. We've had a lot of them over the years, especially about feeling successful, unsuccessful, like we need to do something else, all the things that go with being an author. There are probably many authors listening to us right now. What would you say to new authors, even authors who have 5 books out or whatever it is? So give us some author advice.
It's interesting that you say that. I just got off the phone with a woman who is positioning herself to be a debut author, and she's working on a piece of fiction that she's been dedicated to for a lot of her entire adulthood, and funny stories from back then and how to weave them into a storyline that a reader who doesn't know her would really enjoy. I think the author experience is unique for each one of us, but there are common themes, which is frustration, which is self-doubt and imposter syndrome. Can I really do this? Am I any good at this? Did that even make sense? Would anybody buy this? Does anybody need this? Does anybody want this? So those are some common themes that I always try to prep authors for, no matter what stage of life that we're in, no matter how many books we've cranked out. Those feelings just seep back for whatever reason. You're a best-selling author, Elizabeth, and sometimes we harbor these fears, right? Like the worst parts of ourselves we attribute to the book, the release, the marketing plan. And you have to be mindful of all of that because it is in the deconstruction of success, right? But there's an internal level of success that we have to be willing to sit on that overrides all of that other stuff.
I completely agree with you. I think it's really important to surround yourself with people who know you when you're writing a book, so you can go, is this awful? Is this great? Is this good? What should I do differently here? That kind of feedback that isn't going to hurt your feelings, the comfort zone to have that honest feedback of like, no, like I'll say to you, I'll give you a paragraph that I've written and you'll send something back and I'll say, what I really meant to say was this, or whatever. You'll kind of wordsmith it a little bit. But don't you think that's so important to have when you're doing this?
Your comfort zone? Yes. You need your comfort zone, and you need that in all areas of your life. But writing a book is a bit like putting a piece of your soul out for public view. And when you enter that public square, you know what you're going to encounter, which is the best of humanity, and unfortunately, sometimes the worst of humanity. And if you're providing a blueprint, which you are doing this from your heart, from your soul, things that you've seen, things that you've learned from, experiences that you have already had, that you can transition to another person's life to maybe prevent them from falling off the cliff like you were close to or that you did. So that takes such a level of courage to put together thoughts, a community like you've built that's based not on just hope and dreams, although that's a part of it, but solid banked experience of life, hardships, success, when you win, when you lose, how you get through the rough spots, how you smooth out the patches that didn't go as you would have expected them to. A book like yours has a lasting message no matter what generation reads it, follows it, or shares it, because these are testimonials of success from all walks of life. I mean, from C-suite, top of your profession executives, to somebody like me in TV, to somebody who's creating a brand new product, to somebody who's an actor, to somebody who's an elite athlete. It's every walk of life, but these shared experiences of success, and even more importantly, getting over the hurdles to success.
Yeah.
I mean, that has such power to bring everybody together because we've all been there.
So Jennifer, the Success Guidebook examines success in a new way. It redefines success. How has your perspective and pursuit of success evolved through the years?
In pretty much all ways it possibly could. When you're younger and you're just setting out on a career that you perceive what you want it to be, there's nothing you won't do to achieve that level. And that means sometimes sacrificing your time, sacrificing moments with your family, sacrificing other pursuits of things that might bring you joy or happiness or comfort, because you're putting all your chips on the table into what you perceive to be attainable within your career or what you see as success. And when you're younger, I think that you have tunnel vision to a certain extent, or at least I did, for what success meant, which was the biggest TV job that I could find, the biggest network that I could work for. And that was where all my chips on the table were directed at. As I've aged, as I've had children, as my children have grown, I've understood success on a different level, which is not necessarily my success anymore, but it's the peace and happiness and joy that I feel when I've been able to watch my son play baseball or my daughter play soccer, get into the college of their dreams, achieve grand things as adults. That's now how I measure success, which is not in how much I can tax my body and brain at work, but how much I can fill my heart with memories of those I love, achieving big things that matter to them.
So how has the notion of success guided you in making big decisions, both business, personal, and so forth?
I've always linked the notion of success with what an achievement feels like for me on the inside. For instance, if it is something that feels a little squishy or my integrity is being challenged, but it might leap me forward in a career or in a financial situation, I'm going to take a moment and step back, because I have to live with this decision that I have made for the rest of my life and for the rest of the lives of the family that I've built. And they need to watch the decisions that I make, what guides those decisions, that it's not necessarily success as a firm bank account number or a level achieved at a job, but it's what I've done to incorporate integrity and a sense of doing right by others, a sense of being the best person in the best role, and in a sense of being able to deliver what somebody is bringing me in to try to achieve. So that's morphed a bit. So it's not just the hard line that success equals the kind of house that I live in, the money that sits in my bank account, or what I drive, but it's the success that I've achieved through making decisions that are based on what my soul tells me is good for me and the people who are bringing me in to do a job for them.
Yeah, I agree. We were joking before we went on the air about our backgrounds. Sometimes people sort of have this, when you're watching us and so forth, you think, oh, okay, there's their background and this and that. But if you turn the camera to the left a little bit, I have cat litter, a cat, cat food, and all these things. So what do you think about that, like, image and all of these things, like, especially on social media, where we're all like, okay, here's everything great about me, but you're missing, that half of the screen where everything's piled on my couch or, whatever. Talk about that a little bit.
You're right. It's the other half of the screen. It's the picture before the filters are applied to it. It's the sky before the storm rolled in. It's all of those things. And you can work with that to a certain extent, but at some point, I feel like that wall just completely falls down. You have cat litter to your left, and I have dog bowls to my right. And, a little 14-year-old Cocker Spaniel that I have to lift to bring out and back in. And it's just the jumble of real life. Now, for professional purposes, if you have a social media presence, right, you want to make sure that people understand that you are professional. You represent yourself well. You will stick to a table of deliverables. You're real. Yeah. So how do you balance that with just having fun, right? And not using filters and letting your hair down and acknowledging that, you've got cats and I've got an old dog. I think it's a balance. And I think the community at large, people at large, readers at large, people who watch TV at large, they're going to look for an element of humanity behind whatever curtain you try to put over your persona. You have to be honest with who you are, and you have to be honest with the work that got you there, because we all have bruises and we all have scars. And wow, was that a sharp right hook across my chin a few years back? We've all learned to live with all of those things, but they've made us stronger. And I think we owe the people who buy our books or watch us on TV, we owe them the truth about the world we live in, the world we've created, and the difficulties we've encountered.
Yeah. I think in there too, instead of like faking it, like me saying, no, there's no cat in here or anything like that. I think it's so important to just be real and be authentic and so forth. Because I just think that presents a way better version of us to the world, because from there we can share our goals, our dreams, and so forth, and people show up for you, especially when you like vocalize, rather than pretending pretending everything's right, and instead maybe vocalizing hopes, dreams, and goals, and where you want to go and where you are now. That presents an opportunity for people to show up in your life and help you achieve. Otherwise, it's a guessing game.
And how many times have I texted you or reached out to you and had a question because it's something I've never encountered before, or vice versa? And the fact that we're honest with each other, and I can say to you, hello, my friend Elizabeth, this is happening right now. I'm not 100% sure what to do about this, but I think you've seen this before. What would you let me know was a best practice for you? Or how do you think I can maneuver this? And when you open the door or your gate for other people to come in and seep from you what has made you better, why would you not offer the opportunity to be completely honest about why you have that experience, about why you built that harder approach to something, about why you didn't jump off that cliff at an opportunity that presented itself because you had integrity and you've learned from past mistakes that don't always leap at something that appears to be better than it is, because it might not be anything that you perceive it to be. So if you don't have that exchange built on an honest foundation, I don't think you have real relationships.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I think also too, the ability to not take advice from people is really key too, because when somebody asks us for advice or a take on a situation or whatever, we're coming to them with all of our experiences as well. And some of those might not match up. It might be like, well, that works for me. That doesn't. That's definitely not good. That great idea. It's everything. So I love the personal filtration system. So if somebody's coming at you with advice, you can turn that filtration system on and pick and choose what works for you without offending the other person. Like, why didn't they take my advice? And things like that. Fear of offending someone for, not following them exactly right. I think is really important.
And if you're a parent, like both of us are, you understand that your advice is not always going to be the path they take.
In one ear and out the other. But I always say to them, to our 4 boys who are, goodness, we have kids in their 20s, not our 20s, but their 20s now.
No, not our 20s.
No, I'm not going back. But I'll say to them, I don't think I'm necessarily smarter than you for sure, but I may have seen that because just from the sheer point of being 55, yes. 55 and 65, we may have seen it once or twice before. So there's just mileage that presents itself. So that's another important thing too, to have that honest exchange with kids, because who doesn't want their kids to be successful in one way or another? And that doesn't mean dollars in their bank account, but happiness instead. Mm-hmm. And so there's those moments where we have these exchanges with our kids, and you're right. Sometimes it goes in one ear and perhaps out the other, and some of it's sage though.
And some of it is something that they have to learn on their own. Oh, yeah. And that is the hardest lesson of all, that we as moms have to learn and eventually accept, that not only are we trying to save our kids and even people we love, and even people who reach out who want to be in the reading community and, buy our books, which we're so grateful for. Yeah. But we can't always force our experiences onto somebody else, even if it would be in their own best interest. It's just, life doesn't work that way. Life doesn't work that way. And then maybe that's why at each generation, we might alter what success means to us, because it's different for me as where I am right now than it was to me when I was 21, just getting into this industry. Same for you. That's why we're able to sort of address perceptions with experience, and experience that has delivered results. So we can assume success, right? We already know the tools to get there. We've applied them, we've used them, but we can soften the landing a little bit if the results don't always come out the way we envisioned they would.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to shift to talking about results. And sometimes we miss the goals. We miss our benchmarks. We miss all we don't have the level of success we've imagined, dreamed of, and so forth. In fact, it could be like a failure. How do you persevere through this type of situation? They're not always so fun, are they?
No, they're horrible. um, they hurt deeply. It takes a long time to get over. And you always approach that with the understanding. So in other words, if you're competing for a high level job, or if you're trying to get a wonderful literary agent and a publisher for a book project you've been working on, there's the one channel in which the sea is calm, you are floating right along, you encounter all the best fish along the way, you pull them up and you are eating good. You've loaded your fishing net, you're going home and you're cooking up some delicious salmon. I don't even like seafood, so that's a weird analogy. Or you're in the channel that is full of white caps and your boat is about to capsize and you've thrown out 100 lines and not one fish has been biting. And you have to reevaluate. How do you get to calmer shores? How do you get to more peaceful waters? So sometimes failure can deliver us out of a choppy channel to a different channel that maybe we wouldn't have known had we not hit that rough patch in the water. So I'm not saying that failure is lovely and it can deliver us to bigger dreams than we ever thought that we would have. I am saying that failure is inevitable for most of us. So if we encounter it, rather than let it demolish the dream path that we had, let's marinate it in a little bit of our time. Let's marinate it in a little bit of our heart and try to examine why it didn't work that way, why I was in the choppy waters in the first place, and what I need to do to get myself back to a place where I can envision a different path, a different future, and embrace that with all of the integrity that you build up for your version of success, all of the experience, which is both success and failure. Apply all of those things and find a different path that might look a lot different than the one you thought you were on, but you have no choice, right? If we're all going to encounter failure at some point, something might not work, someone might let us down. We have to find the resiliency to get to the other side of that. We just can't stay stagnant and we can't live in choppy waters forever.
You know, I love that answer. And I think one of the things in the book, in the Success Guidebook, that I love is the fact that there's all ages of contributors that have showed up for the book. And I think one of the most meaningful chapters in that book is helping young people through failure and adversity, where our own son Cam steps in. And you're right. It is very hard to step back as a mom and see something not go right, or injury or whatever it is. And it's powerful lessons for both parents and children in the book in parts. When you were talking about that earlier, it touched me. But I had the opportunity this past week in Boston to read that entire book into audiobook format. And so, it was so fun. It's like a passion of mine. I know it is yours too. But I got a moment to reconnect with all of the contributors and relearn and rehear their stories and everything. And as I was listening and reading and all this stuff, I was like, wow, these are some really powerful stories and people in this book about, like, that moment where like you were talking about, like, which path do I go on? And this didn't work out. What do I do next? No, that's all in there. So my hope is that a reader of this book really takes a moment to go through the stories, because sometimes people skip over things in the book. And I'm like, no, don't skip over that. You can skip over my voice, but don't skip over them. They've got such great examples. So there's 20 people in the book, plus about 10 more who share things within the narrative. And I just loved every moment of it. And your story was about focus. Do you want to talk about your story a little bit? Because you wrote about the focus required to be a news anchor, and also all of the things going on in your life in the background. Because I think we both agree that, like even Russ here right now, we've got 50 scripts playing in the background of things happening once we're sitting here, like just rolling. Do you want to share with us about your story?
Sure, happy to. Focus is a big part of what I do for a living. Focus is a big part of what anybody does for a living. Focus is a big part of being a parent, being a student, getting through class, getting a degree, passing a test. It is all around us, and it is all in us, and it's all the time. And sometimes conditions come in. It's like a video game, right? You have a purpose. You have to get either from the base to the beach, or you have to make sure the spaceships don't land on Earth, and your focus is that goal. But in the pursuit of daily life, right? Daily life, there are so many things that come in that can contaminate your field of focus. And as it relates to TV, I can't allow that to happen from these hours to these hours. I have to be completely focused on delivering the news that everybody who's watching us needs to know, wants to know. It's my job to make sure they know. My bosses are counting on me to deliver what they need everybody else to know. So in those hours, I'd have to learn, and I've been doing it, but it was never more so challenged than over these past few years with the illnesses with my mom and dad. I had to learn a different way to focus, which is a way to just keep coming back to the same place, even though there were a million tentacles that were all wrapped around me and trying to pull me in 100 different directions all at once. And even when I was on TV, there would be things happening on my phone that were directly related to the health and wellness of my mom and then my dad. At the same time, I was trying to be calm and deliberate and focused on delivering the news. So there were a few strategies that I started to come up with. Breathing is a huge part of that. Now I work out a lot, and I run, and I do things that tax your breathing, or you got to get your breathing in order to get to the finish line or to finish your workout. That's different. So this is a sort of breathing that you're not, you're stationary, you're in one place. And it was sometimes 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out, closing my eyes for a minute, breathing in through my nose and letting it out through my mouth, because my heart would pound. I'd be so frantically worried something was going on with my mom, that call. And then my dad, that I was a little flighty at times. I was looking at something, but I wasn't really seeing it. So that all had to stop. I had to get control of all of that stuff in order to do my job. So breathing is a big part of it. Another part of it too is something as simple as having an object. And even if it's, below the desk and you can't hear it, I was in the commercial kind of tapping a pen, which would deliver energy sort of out of my body, out of my hand into this object and free up my brain a little bit, free up that breathing space a little bit. Focus evolved in me. It had to. And now that I've learned those strategies to control it a bit better, I can apply it in all different ways that I encounter. But everybody has to find that path, especially during really stressful points in your life. When you're watching Cam on the mound and you're worried about an injury or a fastball, or is he going to get him on that curveball? That's a different focus for you. If somebody has a big presentation that they're about to give, then the weeks leading up to that, that's a different focus for them. But it's the ability to control yourself when you can't control the conditions around you.
Oh, well put. Well put. I love that. And however you find to do that, that's the mission.
And that's personalized. That is not a standard blueprint. That is personalized for, I think, each person.
Yeah. So this is off the question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. But you have a lot of serious, it's the news isn't funny and things like that. You're kind of funny and humorous and lighthearted and everything. But we wouldn't like that if you were delivering the news. So, yeah. So tell me about that part of you, because it's a serious job you have. That's a lot of responsibility right here, and you're everything about you. How do you balance that?
How we were just talking about being real and being honest with people about who you are. So when I'm doing my job, I am honest about who I am for that job.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm not a jokester. I'm not being a goof. We might joke a little bit and have a little bit of lighthearted banter back and forth between a co-anchor or a meteorologist or our sports anchor, and that's all allowed. That's fine. But I'm not going to say to them on TV what a viewer doesn't want to hear about me or my day or anything or something I think is funny. It's just inappropriate. So it's just finding the appropriate venues for all colors of your full spectrum. So with friends, I'm full throttle. With you, I'm full throttle. Yeah. At my job, I'm full throttle in what that role has to be.
Yeah. So you're Swiftie.
able.
I mean, I hope everybody knows this, what a Swiftie you are.
Oh yeah. Well,
The
more my
Taylor Swift
daughter's
stuff
more
at
the
night one to
Swiftie.
let.
My daughter is the Swiftie.
Oh, you are too, though. I
I
saw
can
you with
appreciate
your
the
bracelets.
Swiftie.
But
Yes, I'm all about
yeah.
having fun. I'm all about doing things. I'm all about adventures. I'm all about experiences because, yeah, in TV news, you don't get to see a lot of that. You get to see the worst aspects of human behavior. You get to see both sides of the political machine. You get to hear about everything bad that somebody has done, and that's going to be your A block in the news. It just is. It's just how we're built. It's just what we consume. But every now and again, you can open the curtain again and look behind there and see, okay, well, this person started a blood drive, and they've saved 10,000 people with the donations that they've been able to accrue through the years. And, this person just ran the Boston Marathon, and this person is a charity runner for this particular group because cancer impacted them, or whatever the case may be. And those are the best. And that's when you can let a little bit of yourself out, for the viewers to see, because they're feeling the same way you are. So another thing is when we're all consuming the same news, whether I'm presenting it to you or you're home watching it, we're all consuming the same thing. So I feel everything you feel. Trust me.
Yeah. Talking more about success on a wider scale. I like to say success is comprehensive. For example, you might have one area of your life so wildly successful and another area kind of hurting. And I see this sometimes in my own life too, with I'll go full throttle writing a book, and then I'll be like, oh man, I gained 15 pounds or whatever. And I'll see it. And I think we're prone to this as just human beings and so forth. So how do you approach success as multifaceted? And I think you've shared a little bit, but do you have an answer for that one?
I think so. And that blends focus in a little bit, because when you're writing your book, that's your sole focus. That's all you've been doing for the past 6 months or 7 months or however long. And then, you're in the extreme phase in the last 3 months of it, getting your cover done and getting all of your contributors in line and getting everybody ready to go. And that's your sole focus. So it's only when that has been achieved that you can look around you and be like, oh man, I'm not doing this in the yard. And usually every year I've planted this by now. Or, oh, wow, that wall really needs to be painted. How did I not see this for 6 months? So it's all encompassing, but very narrow.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay with that. When you say, I've been working on my book, but I've gained 15 pounds. I want to bring you back to the first point. Look what you've just done.
Yeah.
You have written a book. You have gathered a gaggle of people together to contribute important aspects of life to your book. You have worked with editors. You just voiced your book. So sit in that for as long as you need to, because that is the full throttle success that we're trying to tell people about. And or you just had to tutor your kid in math for a year to get out of freshman year algebra, and you did it. You and your kid sat at the kitchen table and you did it every single night. And now that kid is about to get out of freshman year with a B+ in algebra. We did it. Yeah. That is success.
Yep.
Did you not make gourmet meals every night for your family because you were working with your kids?
How dare you?
Yeah. No, you didn't. Did you not hit your run miles for that month if you're a runner or you work out? You might not have, but your kid just got a B+ in algebra. So success has to be representative of everything that we've just toiled in before we let our brains look around and find all of the things that we think we just failed at. So
yeah, right there. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. And bravo for explaining that, because it's so true. And we do that all the time. How, let's talk about women for just a little bit here, and we can bring in men and other people, all the people. Talk about the notion that another person's win is your best day.
Oh,
because I know I've seen you cheer me on when I needed to be cheered on. I've cheered you on when you needed to be cheered on, and it extends out in our networks and so forth. But how is another one's win your very super best day?
Because when we have found success, we know what that feels like. And why wouldn't we want people we care about to know what that feels like too?
Yeah.
That's the simple answer. And then as it relates to other women, we have an understanding of what it feels like to try to do all things at all times. Hold up your end of the bargain at your job, be a really good mom, get to all the plays and the games and never miss a practice, be a good wife or a partner. So we know what that pressure feels like because we've lived that pressure. We live that pressure. It is all around us and all consuming at times. So why wouldn't we want somebody who also knows all of those pressures to have a really big moment that says to them, you did it. You did it. I knew you could do it. Look what you just did. I don't think you can properly grasp success on your own if you can't equally celebrate it when it happens to somebody else.
Yeah. And what about, like, when we were kids, there was a lot out there about mean girls and people being mean to each other.
Still is.
There still is. Do you feel like we're finding less and less of that? Like women champion, I never can say that word. Just, women helping other women. I'm going to just switch that up. Women helping. It caught me in the audiobook too about 10 times. Women helping other women.
Mm-hmm.
Are we doing better?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes, in terms of our collaboration, we have more webs to tap. Technology allows us to reach people that we might not live next door to, but we can access them just as easily as if we did.
Yeah.
So that is an astounding development in how to reach people, root for people, support other people, have them support you. But at the same time, we're still battling human emotion and human restrictions. And if you encounter a person who, no matter all the technology in the world, might still trash you on social media or not encourage you where they should, or in a public way or a front-facing way, or even a behind-the-scenes way, then you've still encountered the mean girl from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. It's just in a different way. Because we're all still people, right? We all still have those demons that power the worst traits of ourselves. And when those demons get too strong, they become your most obvious traits. We still have plenty of them out in the world. I think the goal is to just know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, that's a really good point and reminder.
You always make a really good point where you surround yourself with people who either know more than you or people who are going to help you elevate to the level of their understanding or their experience or their scholarly aspect of living life, right? So in that same vein, maybe toss those people aside. If they keep proving to you time after time that they're not in your corner or they're not there for you like you are for them, it's okay to let them out of the net.
Yeah, that's great advice. That just happened a little bit ago, and it was like I was in tears that day. I'm like, why would somebody do that? Like, so anyway, we won't elaborate on that. But speaking of authenticity and integrity, though, one last question for you. How do you think authenticity and integrity factor into achieving success and maintaining success?
Authenticity is huge because through who you are, what you know, what skills you have, what talent you've developed, that is your easiest route to success. Authenticity also can be broken down if you don't have it. If you pretend to be something that you are not, eventually the time will come that the real you is revealed. So whether you're representing a book or a job or a project or a store or a restaurant, if you don't bring everything that you are to that, your full authentic self, then inevitably you are going to encounter hurdles that break down the facade that you've been working behind. Authenticity is the first and foremost thing that you bring. Integrity goes hand in hand with authenticity. It's doing something that you would be proud of 20 years from now. It's doing something that you would be proud to tell your kids you did. And if you can't guide a decision by that, then you might want to jump off that wagon because it might be headed towards a cliff eventually, not necessarily right away. And you can weasel your way through those things, but not forever.
Do you think people are afraid to show up and try and be successful because they're afraid they don't know everything? Um, I kind of encourage those people a lot because I'm like, hey, I'm right there with you. I have got so many flaws, kind of thing. And what I love about people though is when you tell somebody, nah, I don't know that or whatever, people show up and fill in your gaps.
So working in New Hampshire at a TV station up here, inevitably every 4 years, we are challenged with the New Hampshire primary, and all of the presidential candidates for months and months and months congregate to New Hampshire. So first of all, you have to know who they are. You have to know behind the scenes. You have to know their record. You have to know their positions. You have to know everything about everything as it relates to that person and the office they're seeking and what New Hampshire First will be voting on. So in order to do that, I always ask questions. I always lean into whoever their advisors are. I always ask other political pundits. I always reach out and I'll say, hey, I remember a conversation I had with this candidate and they mentioned this record and they mentioned this vote from 30 years ago. Do you remember their thinking back then when they were, formulating a response to this vote and they were about to take this in Congress? And, do you remember? It's not that I can't go researching that myself. I probably could, but I want the flavor of the memory. I want other people to invigorate that into me. So if they're telling me a story from something that their candidate did 20 years ago, I want to hear the memory from them. I want to hear the memory directly from the candidate. So it's not that I know everything about them. I know enough to get me through hours of election night coverage because I've done my research and I've committed it to memory, but I want to know more. And I don't assume that I know everything. So if you are coming to a conference, for instance, and you're the expert, then yes, you better come prepared to know just about everything, or at least more than your audience will. But if you are preparing to write a book, or if you're preparing for a big presentation, it is great to ask questions of other people who know more than you do about that topic. It is exceptional to be well-rounded, and you can only be well-rounded when you go looking for the answers. So don't always think it's a bad thing to not know everything about something. It's a great thing to ask for a lift, to ask for an answer, to ask for a memory, because that only further fortifies everything that you can bring to the table.
I love it. So it has been so much fun having you here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a contributor in the book. And we'll send everybody to your website, jvwrites.com, and then send everybody to successguidebook.com if you haven't purchased the book. You get all sorts of free gifts and all that good stuff. But thank you so much for being here. We all appreciate you, and I always appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh, right back at you. I am so proud to be in your book. I am so proud of you. This is going to be a huge success because it deserves to be, and I will be cheering you on every step of the way. Mwah. Thank you.